A number of years ago, I heard a young father addressing a tremendous gathering in California. And suddenly, though, I heard him saying, "I love my little girls more than anything," and I said to myself, "Oh no, don't say that." But I had underestimated him. He went on, "I would rather see my little girls die now, still believing in God, than have them grow up under communism and one day die no longer believing in God." Yes, let us pray for the salvation of all of those who live in that totalitarian darkness. Pray they will discover the joy of knowing God. But until they do, let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world. So in your discussions of the nuclear freeze proposals, I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
Even Mikhail Gorbachev has agreed that Reagan has a lot to do with the end of the Cold War. One of his most important contributions to the iconic moment in history was Reagan's Evil Empire speech. Through this speech, delivered on March 8, 1983, it is easy to see why we call Reagan the great communicator. From the very start, he establishes a connection with the audience. He uses humor and his natural inclination to tell stories to make the audience feel comfortable, as he showed when he made a joke about the first politician ever to enter heaven. After the laughter died down, Reagan begins to explain his very Christian view of the country. The entire speech bolsters a bibliocentric view of the world that won Reagan the support of the moral majority. It also emphasizes the moral basis of many of Reagan's policies, including anti-abortion and prayer in public schools. We see him state that when America ceases to be good, it ceases to be great. By this, he means that when we stop paying attention to the morality of our actions, our freedom and democratic principles will suffer too. The speech also simplified the entire Cold War into two terms, good and evil. Most notably, Reagan calls the Soviet Union an evil empire when he discusses the idea of a nuclear freeze. He even tells the story of a man who would rather see his children dead than alive under communism. He argues that, unlike America, the Soviet Union is unreligious and godless, and that was one of the reasons communism had to be stopped. Although the speech was very Christian and Bible-oriented, Reagan's frank statements and powerful words inspired the entire audience and strengthened the want for an end to communism. It set off a chain reaction that resonated through the entire world. The speech may have been based almost nothing on fact, but it was one of the most important presidential statements of the Cold War.
My fellow Americans, I have spoken to you from this historic office on many occasions and about many things. The power of the presidency is often thought to reside within this Oval Office, yet it doesn't rest here. It rests in you, the American people, and in your trust. Your trust is what gives a president his powers of leadership and his personal strength. And it's what I want to talk to you about this evening. For the past 3 months, I've been silent on the revelations about Iran. And you must have been thinking, well, why doesn't he tell us what's happening? Why doesn't he just speak to us as he has in the past when we've faced troubles or tragedies? Others of you, I guess, were thinking, what's he doing hiding out in the White House? Well, the reason I haven't spoken to you before now is this. You deserve the truth. And as frustrating as the waiting has been, I felt it was improper to come to you with sketchy reports or possibly even erroneous statements, which would then have to be corrected, creating even more doubt and confusion. There's been enough of that. I paid a price for my silence in terms of your trust and confidence, but I've had to wait, as you have, for the complete story. That's why I appointed Ambassador David Abshire as my special counselor to help get out the thousands of documents to the various investigations. And I appointed a special review board, the Tower Board, which took on the chore of pulling the truth together for me and getting to the bottom of things.
In his Iran-Contra speech, Reagan begins by explaining why he hasn't talked about the Iran-Contra affair recently. He reassures the citizens of America that he has not been hiding out in the White House while being afraid of the backlash he would face. He goes on to say that the reason he has waited so long to address the American people is that he wanted to be absolutely sure of the facts and of what was going on. He also says that if he gave his address earlier and some facts were wrong, then he would have put more doubt in the minds of Americans. Reagan goes on to admit that while his heart and best intentions were there, it was still a mistake. Reagan takes responsibility for the affair and says that he cannot escape the responsibilities of being a president. Reagan then says that he will take action in three basic areas: personnel, national security policy, and the process for making sure that system works. After describing these three goals in detail, Reagan says what must happen next. He believes that America should move on from what happened and learn from their mistakes. He says that the healthiest way to deal with a problem is by learning your lessons and moving on. Finally, Reagan ends his speech by saying that America should move forward and that there's a lot he wants to accomplish in the next 2 years as president. He began his speech by reassuring Americans and their trust in government and ended with that same reassurance. With a nation confused about the Iran-Contra affair, Ronald Reagan offers the best answers he could.